Hello everybody, we really need to talk about the Lantern Rite event because we learned quite a lot this year. As always, this is a theory video. I use information available in the game, but my theories and deductions are not the official lore of the game unless they get confirmed in later official updates. I would also take the chance to apologize for my microphone popping and crackling. I have tried everything, but it just keeps on doing that. It takes me hours to record a video because I always need to delete and record again because of those sounds, so bear with me, please. I think this year's Lantern Rite was one of the best actually. The story was incredibly good, but also extremely sad. We learned that Guizhong's name was Hagentus, which is another demon of the Ars Goetia called Hagenti, a fallen angel that can change water into wine and transmute any metal into gold, but also imparts wisdom to the conjurer. We saw Guizhong competing with Cloud Retainer to see which one could build better mechanical devices, but also with Street War Rambler, Yu-Peng, to make the best musical instrument and melody. That's when Guizhong built the cleansing bell that we used in the rite of parting for Rex Lapis. Despite competition, Guizhong was very loved and respected by the Adepti and she became really close with Street War Rambler. But those times soon came to an end when, as we already knew, Guizhong was one of the first casualties of the Liyue Archon War, and her death pushed Rex Lapis to move their people from the Guili Plains and found Liyue Harbor. I've always thought that Rex Lapis was the one who suffered Guizhong's death the most, but it turned out that Street War Rambler had it worst. Obviously, people are already speculating on a romantic relationship between the two because, I don't know, it's supposed to be exciting and intriguing, but let's be real, I honestly see a very deep and close friendship or sisterhood that left an equally deep scar in Street War Rambler's soul. I also thought, through Shao's story quest in particular, that the Yakshas were summoned by Rex Lapis to quell the hatred of the fallen gods, also known as daemons, the evil power or regret and anger that lingers after a god is killed. This seemed to mean that the Yakshas were contracted to fix the aftermath of the Archon War, but in Guizhong's video, we see them sealing something above her dead body. This means that they were summoned since the beginning of the Archon War. As for what they're sealing, I could only guess it's the same as Avria's story. Back then, John Lee told us that
no matter how weak the god, the power that flows forth when they are slain is beyond the strength of mortal coils to bear.
In Havria's case, everyone turned into salt, so I don't even want to imagine what would have happened if Guizhong's power got released with her death, since she was the god of dust. Though, I wonder if the symbols on the seal, the language of Liyue, actually say something. Sadly, we don't know how Liyue's alphabet works, so I can't do much about it. From Guizhong's story, we can also deduce that Rex Lapis freed Alatus, Shao, from the clutches of an evil unnamed god before Guizhong's death, since we see all 5 Yakshas sealing Guizhong's power: Bosacius, Bonanus, Indarius, Menogias, and Alatus. This also means that Guizhong was definitely not the first casualty of the Archon War, since, knowing that Rex Lapis didn't even know what being restrained meant, the evil god that exploited Shao was definitely exterminated. With Guizhong's name, the writers have used 15 names of the Ars Goetia. For the Archons we have Barbados, Morax, Buer, Fossilor, and Baal and Beelzebul, which are the same demon, then Esteroth for the ruler of time, Paimon, who we still don't know who she really is, but I still think she's one of the 4 shades. Then we have the gods of the past, which are Marcosius, Andrios, Ozaio, Hagentus, Horabashi, Havria, and the Corabian. And lastly we have Naberius, and we have no idea who he or she is, nor what the heart of Naberius that Ryan's daughter was looking for and found is used for. This means that there are still 57 names left, of which a few have already been used but are still unknown to us. Sasti, Fanes, Kapatsir, Dashret, and I still think Esamon, Rukedevata, although she may share the name Buer since they both are avatars of Irminsul, and the Ars Goetia demon doesn't have an alternative name like Baal and Beelzebul, the previous Hydro, Pyro and Cryo Archons, and the current Pyro and Cryo Archons. I have doubts about Nabu Malikata since she was a Seelie, but if she was actually one of the Moon Sisters, then it would make sense for her to have a demon name, which would also mean that the other 2 sisters would have one as well. If I forgot someone, let me know in the comments. Talking about gods and archons, after Huta's banquet, everybody leaves, but we can find all of them around Liyue. On the Alcor, we can find Venti and Kazuha, and Venti said something pretty interesting.
There's a port in Mondstadt too, but I rarely get the chance to board any of the ships.
Now, this is quite interesting for multiple reasons. Venti goes pretty much wherever he wants. He went to Inazuma and obviously to Liyue for this year's event, and also because that's the port he used to get to Inazuma in the first place, but he doesn't go to Port Dornman. Why is that? Why can he board the ships there? This may be pretty absurd of a theory, but if you're here, you're definitely expecting a crazy theory. There is one thing that we know it's missing from Port Dornman that may or may not have something to do with him not going to that section of Mondstadt. The Statue of the Seven, or better yet, the stolen statue that was turned into the defiled statue as we know it. It was stolen from the Port Dornman region of Mondstadt by the Abyss Order and sent to Liyue Harbor with some other cargo on a ship that sailed from Port Dornman. Eula managed to stop the Abyss Order in Liyue Harbor, saving Yanfei in the meantime, but the statue had already been taken away to the spot where we found it upside down. Could it be that Venti can't board ships in Port Dornman because it's on the easternmost side of Tevat and it would end up being too far from a Statue of the Seven, considering that Port Dornman doesn't even have one anymore? Even during the two Golden Archipelago events, the gods never accompanied us, and the Golden Archipelago is in the Dark Sea, so outside of Celestia's jurisdiction and very far away from any Statue of the Seven. Otherwise, what would be stopping him? Like I said, he goes wherever he wants, even across the sea, all the way to Inazuma. On this account, I also have a tiny theory about the Statue of the Seven. So, I used to think that visions were granted by Celestia with a process that involved the statues, the gnosis, and, although unknowingly, also the archons. Then I simply took the archons out of the equation because their ambitions were very different from the required ambitions to receive a specific vision. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I made a whole video about visions and their requirements a few months ago. What I believed then was that a person's ambition needed to align with a specific gnosis and the person would receive a vision through the closest statue of the Seven, since if you're from Mondstadt but you receive a vision in Inazuma, the inlay is in Inazuman style. And yes, Toma, I'm talking about you. This was all good and it seemed to be confirmed by Rana receiving her vision before Nahida lost her gnosis, but then Scaramouche happened. He received this vision, but Nahida had already given her gnosis to the Torre. This means that the statues of the Seven alone connect Tevat and its people to Celestia. A person just needs to be in a region with a statue of the Seven nearby, which will also decide which inlay they'll get. What still troubles me is the reason why no one received a new Electro vision since the Shogun decided to forcibly retrieve people's visions. The only solution to this dilemma I can come up with is that the gnosis are supposed to be something like the Archon's higher visions, and the Archons exist to represent Celestia's will and laws on Tevat. When A decided to actively prevent people from owning visions, that may have contrasted with her gnosis, causing a disruption in the process. It's like having two laws that contradict each other. This could also potentially mean that no new cryo visions should have been given in recent times as well, since the Tsaritsa is rebelling against Celestia, but we have too little information about it to be sure. But then again, she's also granting delusions, so that has to mean something. So yes, in the end I still think gnosis have something to do with visions, especially since they represent the laws of the heavenly principles on Tevat. They are basically higher version of visions and they are essentially Celestia's representation or tangible manifestation of the power and authority of the elements, so maybe they don't need to be owned by the Archon, they just need to exist on Tevat to establish the requirements to assign a vision of a specific element, which again means that they lay out the laws behind the vision granting process. Now to end the video, here's a few interesting mentions that have been made during this year's Lantern Rite. We've already heard about Sea Gazer almost a year ago in version 2.4 during the Crane Returns on the Wind interlude chapter, when we retrieved the Sunset Vermilionite from Sea Gazer's abode in Lisha to complete the construction of the new Jade Chamber. We also learned about Sea Gazer in version 2.7 during the Perilous Trail interlude chapter in the Chasm. He was the previous owner of the fantastic compass, but it's not clear if he built it. We found out through cloud retainers that Sea Gazer's specialty was finding treasures, not constructing mechanical devices like she and Guizhong did, so I would assume someone else created it. During Hu Tao's banquet, we also talked to Shanling and she mentioned Qiaoying village, an unreleased region of Liyue that we already heard about from Liben back in May 2022. This village, as Liben said, is where northern Liyue intersects with Fontaine. We also know about Qiaoying village from the Flower of Life of the Echoes of an Offering artifact set. It seems that the people in Qiaoying village used spirit scent flowers to make tea, and that there was an unspecified adeptus they used to come and go from the village as well, who they started calling Herblord, and was Cloud Retainer and Mountain Shaper's friend. We also know about 2 more unreleased Liyue places that are named in Echoes of an Offering, Chenyu Vale and Yilong Port. To my understanding, or as I interpreted the text, Qiaoying village and maybe Yilong Port as well are probably inside the Chenyu Vale's region, since the word Vale means valley. The story from the artifact set about the tree that was planted by the unknown adeptus takes place in Chenyu Vale, and from that tree the people made tea that was later transported to Liyue Harbor from Yilong Port. So I think that the spirit scent flowers are the flowers of the tree from the artifact set. Since Chenyu Vale has a river in the middle and Qiaoying village is close to Fontaine, I suspect that this place here is going to be Chenyu Vale, and it's probably going to be released in the version prior to version 4.0, just like the chasm was released before version 3.0 since it was in between Liyue and Sumeru. Lastly, still during Hu Tao's banquet, Shao told us that General Capisas used to design clothes for those around him. Going back to the Perilous Trail quest, we saw a few cutscenes regarding the 5 Yakshas, and we actually saw Menocias trying to convince Bosacius to wear clothes since he was always shirtless, but then those clothes had just 2 sleeves while Bosacius had 4 arms. Anyway, Shao also told us that Zhongli's clothes were made by General Capisas, and again in Bosacius' memories, Menocias used to wear clothes that were basically identical to those Zhongli now wears. Also, considering that Menocias was a general and that the term Captain General was the original 14th century term for what later became just General, I still think, just like Ashikai said, that Capitano is going to turn out to be Menocias. So in a few years, when Natlan is about to be released, if you see Shao's rerun, be ready for some dramatic events. And that's it. I really hope you liked this video. I don't know what I'm going to talk about in my next video, but considering the fact that I recorded the commentary before Lisa's event was released, based on the information we will receive from it, I may make a video about it. If that's the case, me from the future who's editing the video will write on screen if that's going to be my next topic. As always, if you liked the video, don't forget to leave a thumbs up, and if you like Genshin Impact Theory videos, consider subscribing. If you have doubts, theories, or you want to add something I missed, then I'll see you in the comment section. Since I've had a slightly not completely pleasant interaction in the comment section, remember to be nice, that's all I ask. I will reply as much as you want if the conversation is polite and civil. Well then, until next time, over and out.